All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of My Endurance Live. Hope everybody's week is off to a good start. So today's topic is heart rate training versus perceived effort. And I'm going to break down what each is, just to elaborate a little bit on heart rate training versus perceived effort so we get a better understanding of that first, and then I'll go into what I use and what I prefer and why. But before we get into that, as always, like to give some recognition to our runners in the group who raced over the weekend and says he felt great. So awesome job, my Endurance Lifers. Always excited seeing you guys out there pushing it and reaching your goals. So thanks for posting and thanks for sharing. Okay, if you're joining the Facebook group, leave a comment. Let me know what kind of training you've been doing or paying attention to, if you've been doing either. Heart rate or perceived effort. If you are watching this on YouTube and you want to join our team calls or join My Endurance Life, go to myendurancelife.com, click on the blue button that says join the team, and you'll be able to join trainings like this. And also we have special guests coming, especially next week. We have a special guest coming, Sarah Sealer. Super excited about that. So if you want to join live on the team calls, make sure you join the team. Okay. Heart rate training versus perceived effort. What's the difference? Well, it's easy to understand what heart rate training is. A lot of it's out there. It's in your face on YouTube, Instagram. Even the apps are pushing heart rate training just so you use their devices. I don't know whether it's a selling mechanism or not, but I'll get into my take on it later because I've done both and I've had results with both, but I've also prefer one over the other, and I'll explain that why later. So first and foremost, what is heart rate training? We all know, or we may or may not know, that heart rate training is broken down into zones, and depending on what app or what like guidance or graph you're following, it can either be broken down from ranges like 1 to 10 or 0 to 5. And based on what effort you want to put into it will be the heart rate zone that you hit. And the way you determine your heart rate zone, you can either do a simple mathematical equation that you can search up online, where you, because depending on your age and your fitness level, your heart rate zones will vary. So, what I mean by that is somebody who's 25 and an established endurance athlete, their zone 2 training, zone 2 is like the most popular, so I'll be talking a lot on zone 2, and I'll break down what zone 2 is in a little bit, but their zone 2 is going to be a lot different than somebody who's in their mid to late 40s and just getting into training, because zone 2 is your aerobic easy effort workouts. So being able to run and talk and jog and talk and carry on a conversation where you're keeping your heart rate really, really low. This is building your aerobic base. And so a 25-year-old in peak physical fitness, their heart rate might be, for a zone 2 workout in the 120s or lower, where I'll use me as an example, where my range, based on all the graphs and everything that you can find online, I should be around a 140 heart rate for my zone 2 training. I'm 42. I'm in what I consider really good physical health. So my zone 2 is around 140 or below beats per minute. Whereas if I was out of shape, keeping my heart rate in that zone 2 level for while I'm running will be super hard, if not impossible. That's why a lot of people tend, if they're using zoned heart rate training, they often get discouraged because it's hard to stay in that low range. And depending on the device you're using, it could be fairly accurate or not accurate. I know heart rate monitors, and depending on the brand and how much money you spend on it, is the best way to go. Wrist-based heart rate monitors, they're kind of 50-50 depending on how uh, price point. It's pretty much what you get what you spend, right? But also heart rate monitors, depending on whether they're chest straps or wrist based, also ramp up at different levels. So what I mean by that is if you start off for a zone 2 effort and you start jogging, it might take your wrist based monitor a couple, a minute or maybe more to catch up and flatten out to really let you know where your effort level is. Whereas a chest strap is going to give you feedback in the data a lot quicker. Um, so that so heart rate training is based on zones, and you can find your zone. The best way to find your zones, so you're working in that zone 2 or zone 4, zone 8, 9, 10, where what depending on the workout that you're going for, is best um, found in a lab working with a coach who can get you safely to your max heart rate, and then they'll monitor you at night when you're sleeping to get your resting heart rate. And by through that, based on your age and the data they've received, they'll be able to tell you where your zones are and how to prescribe a training plan based on that. And using whatever device you're using, they'll probably recommend a chest strap as opposed to a wrist based monitor. So perceived effort. So let's talk a little bit on how, for the sake of this call, we'll use a 1 to 10 range when I'm talking about perceived effort and heart rate zones, because they kind of fall into the same categories based on effort and zones. So zones 1 through 3, what are these? So this is low heart rate training. This is where you're able to run and talk or jog or walk and carry on a full conversation, like how I'm talking now, uninterrupted. Um, you're not getting out of breath at all. And that's how you can know whether you're using perceived effort, if you're getting out of that zone 1 through 3, if you got to take a breath in between starting a new conversation or a sentence. And also, if you're doing your zones, that's a good way to know that you're in your zones 1 through 3 for heart rate training. So perceived effort and heart rate training kind of fall into the same categories if we're looking at that way. We just determine where we are by different ways. For perceived effort, the talk test is by far the easiest and the most accurate way that I use, and that I know a lot of other athletes out there use. Anywhere from novices to the professional level, that they use the perceived effort talk test to know what zone they're working in. So 1 through 3, conversation pace. Once your fitness gets better, you'll be able to run and talk and carry full conversations on without needing a break. If you're brand new and your fitness just isn't there yet, it might be a walk, and that's totally cool, because eventually over time you'll get into being able to run and talk and carry on a full conversation, no problem. Why is it important to stay in these zones? Because we can plateau or even diminish our returns if we run too fast and don't give our bodies enough time to build up that aerobic base that we need as endurance athletes. So if you go on a group run and the people in the front of the pack are established runners and they're running and talking at the same time, and you're trying to keep up with them, but you can't, you might actually not get the gains you want out of the run. Yes, you got the steps in. Yes, you get the mileage in. Your muscular and skeletal part of your body will get gains, but you really won't gain anything from an aerobic standpoint. So your endurance will plateau, or we're here for endurance sports. We want to go long. We want to go far. So the easiest way to get that is to stay in that zone 1 through 3 at the beginning of your training. There are different times it will touch as we get deeper into these zones on when and why to get out of zone 1 through 3. But for the majority, 75-80% of all my training, and I'd say the majority of endurance athletes are done in the zone 1 to 3 stage, especially training for marathon, ultra marathon plus. And for just overall fitness, that this is like the key zones 1 through 3 is where we want to be. Zones 4 through 6, these are like a moderate effort. If you're using the perceived effort scale, this is being able to talk in sentences, needing to pause every once in a while to be able to carry on the conversation, but still being able to run and talk at the same time. But it's needing a breath in between here. So what kind of workout is this? This is like a tempo run or a race pace scenario, depending on the distance. So of course, if you're going out for a 5K and you're trying to PR a 5K, chances are you're not going to be in this zone 4 through 6. But for a half marathon and marathon distance, generally we're going to be up around that 6-ish range for the majority of the race, especially if it's our first or second marathon and we're not really trying, or half marathon, and we're not trying to like just get out there and blitz it and get an awesome awesome PR. So that is race pace, tempo runs, being able to carry on sentences at the same time. If you ever run a marathon or a half marathon at a decent pace, that's a decent pace for you, that you've noticed that you're able to say hi and talk to people along the way and still probably get a PR out of it. So that's where this scale is, just to put it into context for training. Okay, perceived effort, zone 7 and 8, and heart rate, zone 7 and 8. These are a fast run, a hard effort. If you're using the talk test, it's able to get just a word or two out, but really, really pushing it. This is at the upper end, almost to threshold, and probably touching into threshold just for a little bit. This is where, your lungs are going to start to hurt. Your heart's going to feel, like it. Some people get nauseous if they do this. So these are good for like intervals and sprints, and if you're doing thousands or track workouts. This is that where you're pushing the ends almost of max ability as far as effort goes. And when we get into this threshold is like doing hill repeats, where we want to get multiple runs in or multiple attempts at whatever we're doing. Say you have a hill repeat day and you want to do this hill 6 times. This is the zone where you'll be at 7 or 8, where you're going to bust butt going up the hill, come back down, regroup, but you can do it again. Being able to do it a couple times over and over, that's where the zones 7 and 8 is. Okay, 9 and 10, max threshold. Heart's coming out of your chest, ready to collapse pretty much at the end of it if you're not collapsing. Able to do it once or twice. This is that max threshold, max heart rate, zone 9 and 10. When do you get into this? Me, never. Honestly, I never get into this. My hardest days, and maybe if I ever do start working with a coach, that they can recommend when I would do a 9 or 10 workout. But unless you're working with a coach, I don't know. I'd be leery about pushing yourself to the edge. I mean, because 9 and 10 is really on the edge. Like, you can't talk at all. Chances are you're wanting every step of the interval or the sprint or whatever you're doing to be over with, and you're really just trying to push the bounds of that lactic acid to push it away just a little bit further. That's where I could see the only benefits of doing it 9 and 10 workout without a coach. Which brings me to heart rate training. Heart rate training, I think, is good. Like I said before, if you've got tested in the lab, your max heart rate, your resting heart rate, and you're working with a coach to really analyze that data, and you're using a really good monitoring system, something that's reliable. So in conclusion, I'm going to wrap this up. I use perceived effort. I started when heart rate training was getting really popular. I just wanted to see what it was about. I wanted to see, get my data loaded onto Strava and see how I did during that run. If I actually was in my zone 2 run for, range for that run. And the first watch I got was completely inaccurate. It was a bummer, wasted my money on it. The next watch I got was a lot better. And when I went to the doctor and they had a heart rate monitor on me, during my heart rate monitor and my watch, I was actually within a couple beats per minute of itself, which was really, really encouraging. I thought, okay, cool, this watch is good enough to really give me accurate data. And so I used it for about 6 months. And then about 6 months, it had a warranty issue where I had to send it back to, it was a Garmin watch. I had to send it back to Garmin. They gave me a brand new watch and same model, same everything. And my resting heart rate was off about 10 to 20 beats per minute at my resting heart rate. And my max heart rate went up by over 11 beats per minute. It said my max heart rate was 196. There's no way at 42 years old I'm getting 196 max heart rate. It's just physiologically, I think that's the right word, not possible for me to reach that. So not only was all my data wrong now, but it also happened 2 weeks before a race. And so I was going into that race thinking, okay, I'm just going to monitor my heart rate through this race, which ended up being a complete bummer because now, like, all the data that I had been wanting to use for this race, I knew it was inaccurate and I couldn't trust my watch. So it's a good thing that I had years of perceived effort built into me, that I knew my effort levels. So I knew that for the race in particular, it was a 100-mile race, and I wanted to stay in my zone two effort level the entire race, even climbing hills and stuff. If you know, so it was like my forever pace. Forever pace is a zone two effort for me, an effort level of 2. So because of that, I ditched heart rate training pretty much altogether because one, the watch I have now, and I'm not going to spend another couple $100 on a watch just because my heart rate data is inaccurate. That I believe, and I've been using perceived effort long enough that I know, like, this is my zone 1 through 3. I can run and talk here forever and not get out of breath. 4 and 5 feel like this. This is my race pace, and I know that I can run a half marathon or a marathon at this pace and get to the finish line and get finished strong and probably get a PR just based on perceived effort. So if you have the funds to go get a lab test done and use heart rate training, and you have a coach and somebody who can monitor it, and or you have enough time to actually do the research and analyze the data, heart rate training is awesome. And I'm not going to knock it, but I think it's more for the elite athlete spectrum, or the top of the age group runners, people who are really taking it serious. For the average runner, for the people who are out there just as a lifestyle, who like pushing themselves, who like just enjoy running, perceived effort will get you to all your goals and more. So that's in a nutshell, that's my opinion. And let me know in the comments below if this changed your mind or helped you go one way or the other. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to join these calls, by all means, click the link in the description, or just go to myendurancelife.com and click on the blue button that says join the team. Thanks again for watching, guys. Oh, and next week, super cool. Sarah Siebler is going to be joining us. So she's a hybrid coach, and she's going to be sharing and touching on points about what's because as we're coming out of a lot of you guys in the Midwest, especially right now, are snowed in, packed in. The people who live, it's winter, and a lot of people aren't running right now. So she's going to give us tips and exercises for at home, and how to like ramp up your training coming into spring so you don't get injured once you start your training cycle for whatever race you guys are signed up for. So that's next week. Sarah Siebler. Make sure to join the team call so you can get a one-on-one consultation with her after. And thanks again for watching, guys. Super stoked on you, and we'll see you next week.